Thank you so much, Rosette.
Okay, that's him, right there.
No, thank you. Like I said, thank you again for allowing me to be here. Like I said, I'm super. When Rosette told me about this opportunity to come speak in front of the men of Belmont, I couldn't turn it down. You know, I drove far and wide to get here, and I cannot tell you how thankful I am for the opportunity. So, thank you all for this. My name is Tobena Okeke. I play, like I said, I'm originally from Nigeria. I played with the Tennessee Titans in 2018. 2019, I played with the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the CFL, as well as in 2020, I was in the second installment of the XFL with the Dallas Renegades. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened, which cannot control. But, you know, I'm super excited because I got to play with some of the best athletes in the world. I always like to say, I got to play in the best league in the world. I think the NFL is the best league. Can we get a hands? And if we think that as well, if the NFL is the best league out there, or you say anything else?
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
I would say one of them.
I appreciate you, man. Like I said, being able to play there, I'm way smaller than I was when I was in that picture, but, you know, we're not going to say anything about that. But the biggest thing, like I said, I got to play from the best fans in the world. My first game actually was against the Green Bay Packers Friday night in 2018. As soon as I walked into the stadium, I noticed 100,000 fans screaming, cheering, booing. As soon as I walked in, it felt so surreal, like I finally made it. I walked into the locker room, got my pads on, put the shield on, looked into the mirror, I'm looking good, feeling good. Put my gloves on, got my pad strapped on. We walk outside, look across the sideline, and I see it's a two-time MVP, Aaron Rodgers, warming up. No big deal. Like, no big deal. Yeah, shipped to the Jets now, right? But at that time, he was warming up, and I was just like, wow, this is insane. I'm warming up. I'm playing with Derrick Henry in the backfield. Marcus Mariota is our quarterback. I just remember feeling like this was a movie. It's straight out of a movie. I was in a video game at that moment. First thing happens in the first play, the game goes on. Coach looks at me, he's like, fourth quarter, we're like, hey, you better be ready, you're gonna go in soon. My hands started getting a little clammy. I'm nervous. I'm like, oh man. I'm hoping the game just goes by quick so I don't have to even step on the field. Fourth quarter rolls around. He looks down the bench. He said, hey, Fresno. That was my nickname at the time. Hey, Fresno, get in the game. I'm like, okay. I jumped onto the field. As soon as I get into the game, I'm looking at like a grown man. I'm playing against grown men. This is it. This is big time. Like, no, there is no more like leading up. This is it. First play happens. Coach screams out to me, hey, watch the tight end slices back. Offensive tackle's gonna down block. Tight end slices back. You chip in, get to the QB. I'm like, oh, that's money. I've been doing that every day for the last 6 months in training camp, right? So this is easy. I practiced this 100 times. Offensive lineman down blocks, tight end slices back like we said was going to happen. But unfortunately, this time something different happened. I tripped.
Ooh.
As soon as I tripped off the tight end slices back, runs me over. QB rolls out, completes a pass for 10 yards, gets a first down. I'm on the ground. Everything just discombobulated. All I'm hearing is muffles like, okay, get up. And I'm like, oh, snap. I feel humiliated. 100,000 people watching me. My mom's watching me on TV. I'm looking crazy. At that moment, I'm like, man, is this bigger than me? Is this bigger than what I thought it could be for me? Like, was I ready for this moment? Was I ready to play in this? I had two choices to make at that point. Do I mope around, saying, woe is me, I messed up, I messed up, I might get cut tomorrow? Or do I bounce back, don't worry about the next play, pick myself up, and keep going? So a couple plays later, to make up for it, coach calls a blitz. I look into the middle linebacker, I say, Charlie. Charlie needs, he's going to the C gap, I'm rushing to the B gap. They said, play snap, snap. I run up to the A, run up to the B gap, beat the tight end, beat the offensive lineman, smoke the QB in the face. And at that moment, I realized a theme in life, right? It doesn't matter what happens. Losers look at what they're going to. Winners look at what they're going through, right? Like, I could have easily moped around when I was on the ground crying. When somebody ran me over, when it messed up, when it didn't go the way I wanted. but I chose to go the latter way and to keep going. So, well, if you would have told me 23 years ago, when I moved here from Nigeria, that I would be able to play in the NFL on the biggest stage, I would have told you you're lying. Why? Because when I moved here from Nigeria, we didn't have a lot. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment here in Houston, right on Bissonnette. we five of us that lived in that one-bedroom apartment. We used to play hide and seek, and the game would end in 10 seconds, right? There wasn't too many places to hide. You know, growing up for me, I didn't really see a lot. I didn't have the nicest clothes. Didn't have all the food. Sometimes we didn't have power. Sometimes there was days where it's like, man, you know, you got teased for that. I had a very thick accent. You know, it was a new place, new country. Had no friends. You know, so there was a learning curve for me, and it was one of those things that I had to really grow up really quick. You know, most people that get that fun childhood, it wasn't really like that for me. So for a lot of my life, I had a really low self-esteem just because I didn't have what everybody else had. But one thing that stayed consistent, I saw what hard work, consistency, and discipline looked like for my parents. They came here to a different country with 3 kids, and every day they never complained. They made sure that we had food to eat, that we had a roof over our heads, and that we were going to get an education. So going into my freshman year of high school, I had low self-esteem. I didn't really have a lot, but something changed that day. We had a former NFL player. He played for the Arizona Cardinals. He was a receiver. He brought his jersey, he brought his rings. He told us about the food he got to eat, the place he got to go, and the experience he got to have. And at that moment changed my life. Why? Because it gave me dreams. Because at that moment, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was good enough. I was okay in football. But I made a pact, I made a promise to myself that I was going to go to college, that I was going to play in the NFL, and I was going to take care of my family and change their life. I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest. I was 120 pounds, I had a big head, and a small body that could barely fit my pads. But I made a decision. I looked at one of my best friends. We made an accountability decision. We're like, hey, we're going to change our lives. We're going to get a scholarship. Fast forward 4 years later, me and him, the 2 guys weren't the biggest. We didn't have the resources, but we were resourceful. We were the only 2 people to get a full D1 scholarship. Both went to college. The only 2 people. It just shows what having vision does for your life. And for me, growing up, that didn't have too much. When I realized what I wanted and had the resolve to go out every single day and get it, I knew I was unstoppable. But I'm not going to act like I did it by myself. I had a lot of very wise people right next to me, elders just like you all right here. You know, my grandmom, my parents, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. They didn't understand why I wanted to play in the NFL so bad, but they saw my willingness and my spirit to keep going that really propelled me to get to that point. For one thing, one of my biggest things is my mom. She was somebody that really held near and dear to me. Why? Because I knew that she knew I was a small kid. I was tiny. There was no reason I should be playing football. Like, I was small. I was barely eligible enough to be even playing D-line. 170 pounds. But every day she knew that I wanted it badly enough. It was one instance that she came back from work at a 12-hour shift. I had a football camp in Dallas at an Allen High School. She took an hour nap and drove 5 hours at 2 a.m. to make sure I got to that camp at 7 a.m. And after me feeling like I had the worst camp ever, 3 days later, I was offered my very first scholarship to play football. And at that moment, it just showed me how the sacrifices that she was willing to put in to help me get to where I am. And just like little things like that, where other people, whether it was my aunts, my uncles, they poured into me. It wasn't just me. I didn't do it on my own accord. I needed people that poured into me, that believe in me. I needed my elders. I needed to listen. I had to check my ego at the door when I feel like I know it all. It paid dividends, because I knew a lot of my friends who were more talented than me that made the wrong decisions because they felt like they were bigger than somebody else telling them what to do. They felt like they were an adult. They felt like they knew it all. They fell into drugs, alcohol, and it changed their life for the different. There was better players than me, but I just chose the path that most people weren't willing to take. So when I got to college, I realized there was three defining moments in my life. But before I even get to that, I always start with this one story that I heard growing recently. There was 3 sisters 3 older sisters, 196, 197, and 198. One night, the 98-year-old goes to take a bath. As she gets into the bathtub, she puts her one foot into the bathtub, she screams, "Hey, was I going up or was I going out?" The 96-year-old screams to her, "Hey, I don't know, but let me come help you." As the 96-year-old walks upstairs, she gets halfway and screams, "Hey, was I going up or was I going down?" The 92-year-old starts laughing at the most, like, "Wow, I hope I'm not like you guys when I get older," and knocks on wood for good measure. She says, "Don't worry, I'm gonna come help you guys, but first let me see who's at the door knocking." I don't think you guys understood at that moment that joke. There was a joke, there was a theme within that joke though. Like each sister started an activity, but there was something in that moment that threw them off their path. And for me, that hit near and dear because there was many moments in my football career that could have thrown me off. There's many moments in my football career that could have derailed me from getting to the NFL like I said I wanted to do. Right, those 3 distinct actual moments. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I just want to go barely breeze through them. The first moment was my first football camp in college, my first football practice. The day of my first football practice, I think I had an ice cream pop, drank some soda, had some cookies, had a pizza. Then went to the first day of practice. It was 106 degrees outside on the field. We're doing sprints. As we're running, I just realized my body starts shutting down, light starts getting brighter. I end up passing out on the field when the heat stroke is 106 degrees outside. I'm expecting for my coaches to be coming to 10 for me. He comes up, he's like, "Get off my field." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Get off my field, we're stopping the workout." And I'm like, "Man, this is college?" And I'm looking for the other seniors to hold me up and tell me, they said, "Hey, get up. Hey, freshman, get up. Get to the training room or go home." So after I get to the training room, I finally get some water. They resuscitate me. They finally get me back, get some water to me. I realized I walked back to my dorm. I sat in my dorm. I started crying. So at that moment, I had 2 decisions again. I had another 2 decisions to make. Do I call my mom and tell her like, "Hey, this is too hard for me. Like this is way more than I expected." In high school, I was able to get away with eating ice cream and pizza and cookies and going to practice and still being the best player. But now I'm at the bottom and nobody cares for me anymore. Or do I take a second decision and do I show up for myself? Because it was hard for me to call my mom and tell her of all the sacrifices that she's made for me that I was going to quit. So guess what I did the next day? I got up there for 5 a.m. morning runs. I was on the field at 4:30 in the morning. I wanted to make sure Coach saw me as he's coming down the ramp to get onto the field. That's something I was dedicated. We ran wind sprints that morning. I made every single one. I was tired. I was wheezing, but I made every single one. I wanted to show them I was dedicated to this. I wasn't going to come in as a wide-eyed freshman and get bullied out of this. I wanted to play as a true freshman. I played as a true freshman. I started all 4 years at Fresno. But it was at that moment where I could have quit. I could have went home and my story would have ended prematurely. But I chose to keep going. Second moment that almost changed my career was I was part of one of the worst football teams in college football history. I won 1-11 my junior year. I want you guys to understand that. We were horrendous. We didn't beat anybody. We beat a D3 team by only 7 points. And we were a D1 team. So the next year, all the coaches that recruited me, they all get fired. We bring in new guys, new head coach, new everything, new staff. First thing, my position coach, his name is Jamar Kane. He might be one of the best and worst coaches I've ever had in my life. First thing he comes up to me, he's like, why did they give you a scholarship? That's what he tells me the first day he sees me. He's like, "You're not gonna play for me." And I'm like, "Man, I'm a 3-year starter." Like I'm thinking I'm gonna automatically be a starter again. Every single day he made me earn it. Every single day he made me know that nothing was guaranteed for me. He put freshmen in front of me to test me every single day. There was days where I just felt like I was like, there's no way this guy's real. Like, there's no way this is it. Like, he would belittle, scream. One mess up, I'm out the game. Towards the end of the season, when my defensive coordinator comes together, he's like, "Tabena, I've seen the way you've been treated every day. We did that for a reason. I wanted to see how you're going to react. You came in here as a freshman, you played all 4 years, but this isn't the same coach staff. Safe to say that we had the second largest college football turnaround of all time. We went from 1-11 going 10-4 the next year. We had a top 15 defense in the country. I was an all-state player, all-conference player, captain on the team. Why? Because I stayed the course. I didn't let the situation, I didn't let my coach, what his words say, deter my character. My integrity to myself and to my teammates was bigger than the situation that was at hand. Because if I would have quit, if I would have transferred, I would have never been a part of that something special. I would have never had a chance to get picked up by the Tennessee Titans. Right? It just shows that anything you can attack, anything you can do if you stay the course, even when the situation isn't favorable to you. Because now everybody's going to like you. You don't need everybody to like you, though. So the third moment that changed my football career, that almost altered my career, was when I got cut. We always like to talk about the glitz and the glamour. Football, that's me making a tackle right, me against the Vikings right there. It's always beautiful when you see things like that, right? Because it's like you're on a big stage. You're making millions of dollars. You're flying private jets, chartered planes, hotels. We beat the Steelers, so. But the thing with that, I realized when I got cut that the NFL stood for not for long. No, the National Football League was not for long. Because at any moment, at any time, if they say the best ability is availability. It didn't matter. I remember when I got cut the day before the game. I wasn't expecting to get cut. I thought I was gonna see the next week. A couple of players that reached out to me was like, "Hey, KK, you want to go out tonight?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm chilling. I'm tired. I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow, though. We'll catch up tomorrow." Needless that I know that tomorrow morning was the last day I was ever going to see Tennessee. I woke up feeling good, about to head to the training room. I get a call. It's like, "Hey, bring your playbook." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. Bring your playbook and your iPad. I go into a meeting room. In walks the head coach, the GM. He's like, "Hey, we appreciate everything you've done for us. We're gonna have to let you go." And at that moment, it was the hardest moment of my life. My heart stopped. I felt humiliated because it didn't really sink in until I got back to Houston. I was sitting in my mom's house and on my bed, and just a depression hit over me. Like I didn't know what else to do. Like this wasn't in my story. My story was I played for 10 years. I become a Hall of Famer. Then I worked for ESPN. That was my goal. That was my dream. That was my ambition. So when I was cut and laying in my mom's room, my mom's house, in my room, all I could think is how much of a failure I was. All I could think is how I let everybody down. Right? I was supposed to change everybody's life. Everybody was counting on me. Everybody wanted me to take care of them, and I was going to do that. And at that moment, I realized that, what else can I do? I felt insignificant. I felt inadequate. It wasn't until one day my mom and dad walks in my room, they sit down next to me. It's like, "Son, your situation is not your destination. You are not your failures. Just because that happened does not define who you are." My dad looks up at me, he's like, "Son, you had a purpose before you had a platform." Meaning that regardless of where you are and what you're doing, you're always going to be great. Even if it's tackling somebody on a Sunday night or speaking to the men of Belmont on a Wednesday afternoon. It's one of those things that he looked at me, he's like, "Don't let anything define you. You're going to be great. You were destined to be great. Regardless of where you are, regardless of what you're doing, you got to give it your all. You came so far. Don't allow yourself to be dwindled by your situation right now." And at that moment, it gave me the energy. I got up, I started training again. I got called up to the CFL. But if I would have let my emotions get the best of me in that situation, there would never have been me playing. There would never have been me here. It just keep showing up for yourself. Keep going. Every day is not going to be easy. They say the best way to make God laugh is to look up and tell him your plans. Right? Because it never goes the way that you think it's going to go. But if you just keep going, one of my grandma's favorite verses was James chapter 1 verses 2 to 3. It says, it says like, take delight when trials and tribulations come, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And at that moment, I didn't really understand what that meant. I was like, why would I want to be in pain? Why would I want to be uncomfortable? Why would I like, who likes to have trials and tribulations? But in those moments is where you define who you are, right? In those moments that you get to find out those things that you never knew about yourself. In those moments where you get to really show the true strength that you get from. Like in my heyday, I used to bench 355, squat 500, but that wasn't my true strength. My true strength came from every time I was knocked down. My true strength came from every time something happens that I wasn't expecting. It was always showing up for myself. Always believing. Understanding that you are not your situation. You have to have vision. And I thank you all so much because, like I said, when I look at each and every one of you, I look at everybody who's believed in me. I look at, the people who've been in my circle, my elders I've listened to, and, just you guys keep me young.